Yunho has lost hope in pursuing his longtime crush and friend, thinking he is straight, but the slight hope he still has is shattered when his friend announces that he is gay but likes someone else. While trying to win back his friend, he unexpectedly bumps into a mythical creature that changes his belief in love and everything else he thought he wanted. A young man is running breathlessly as he feels some mysterious creature chasing him, but he can't understand what is following him. The growling frightens him more as he continues to run, but he is surprised when it turns out to be a tiger cub who jumps and ends up biting his buttock. It turns out that our protagonist, a beautiful angel, is having a dream about the tiger and wakes up abruptly, still in the daze of that weird dream. He gets up from the bed and starts to get ready, still thinking about how the dream has left him feeling all funky. Before the story can proceed, the protagonist introduces himself, narrating that he is the lead vocalist of a band called Re-Evoke. His career path is not very far away from his dream, as he wanted to become a pop singer but ended up in a band. Despite all the odds, he is still happy with his current life, and everything seems to be going his way, which feels like a dream. The only thing that bugs our angel, until we know his real name, let's address our protagonist as Angel, is that he can't have one thing he desires the most, which is to be in a relationship with his long-term friend and crush, who is like some movie hero. It seems like unrequited first love is a universal thing. Currently, he is going to a restaurant where his friend group is reunited at the request of his crush, who wants to make some important announcements. Our angel is content just being friends with the hero and casually greets his friends when he meets them in the restaurant. Like everyone else, he is also eagerly waiting for the big announcement from Kinghun, but he is shattered when his friend announces that he likes guys. Sadness and regret over hiding his feelings engulf our angel instantly. Kinghun mentions how he only found out when he started liking another guy. Torn by his crush's revelation, our angel excuses himself, saying he has something urgent to do, and runs out of the restaurant. His vision is blurry due to the tears streaming down his face as he runs on the road, cursing himself for being an idiot. He bumps into a man and falls down. The man he bumped into is surprised and tries to help Angel, but our angel instantly he gets up and starts running again, without glancing at the Greek god he just bumped into. Only in stories are people lucky enough to bump into a handsome stranger. The man, looking like a model straight out of some fashion magazine, just stands there in shock as he thinks about the strange scent coming from the human. The fact that a human bumped into him has left him confused about what is special about the little human. The tall, dark, and handsome man has me simping over him instantly. Our angel yet again experiences a nightmare, showing him his family getting into a horrifying accident when he was just a child. He wakes up with tears streaming down his face but eventually gets hold of himself, while dejectedly thinking about how he can't stop having dreams of that unfortunate day. Our cute little angel has gone through some dark things in his past. Don't worry, our superstar. Your handsome knight in the shining armor is on his way to chase your worries away. His chain of thoughts breaks when his phone starts ringing. It is an incoming call from Kinghun, who is concerned about his friend leaving so abruptly earlier. Hiding his true feelings, our angel assures his friend that he is fine and just has to leave due to something urgent. Concerned about Angel's reaction to the earlier news, Kinghun starts to explain himself, saying that he is also flustered about the fact that he likes guys, as he just figured that out about himself. Our angel is a little irritated but still tries to calm his friend, saying he has gone through the same thing when he came out. The mood swings Angel is going through in this scene are understandable. He instantly perks up when Kinghun shares that he is still trying to figure things out because the person he has a crush on doesn't know about it. Our angel's happiness about his friend's statement is short-lived when Kinghun starts to explain how that person sparkles in his eyes, which in turn makes him realize how his friend's feelings are deeper than he thought. Our angel's feelings again take an exciting turn when Kinghun mentions that the person is just like him, and he thinks that this is his chance to win Kinghun back. He quickly announces that he will help him get the attention of his love, but his hopes are crushed when Kinghun mentions that he is living with the person. Oblivious to our angel's feelings, Kinghun continues to explain that they had to leave together due to personal reasons, but since he works during the week, the person must feel bored at home. Despite his jealousy, our angel agrees to go to Kinghun's home and asks him to give the person a heads up about Yunho being there. Even though Kinghun is in love, he still seems strangely oblivious to what our angel is feeling when he seems like a pretty decent guy. Kinghun tries to reject his offer, but he insists on going there, secretly planning to get rid of the person. After deciding on our angel's plan to go there, they hang up the phone as he feels much more at ease after talking to his friend, even though he was feeling very uneasy after his nightmare. His love for Kinghun has returned in full force as he happily rolls in bed, hoping that he will be able to win this battle of love. The next day, our angel gets dressed up, looking mouthwatering with his mesmerizing mint green hair. Our angel is on a mission to get his man, and I, as a loyal fan, completely support him. He is deep in thought, planning to battle his faceless rival, and doesn't notice when he again passes the most handsome man from the previous day on the road. Unlike him, the other person is not oblivious to his presence, as he can smell his unique scent, but is confused by whether the other can really see him. The mysterious stranger has been purposely hiding his presence from the humans, not wanting to disclose his secrets. The person momentarily thinks of calling out to Angel but decides against it as he doesn't understand why he cares about that particular human. Don't worry, mysterious stranger, our Angel has this effect on everyone. Our Angel is dejected as he sits with his band members, thinking deeply about something. One of his band members comes to his rescue, finally revealing the name of our Angel to be Yunho, and asks him the reason for his sour mood. The question reminds him the meeting he had with Kinghun's crush earlier that day. When he visited Kinghun's house, his intentions were to drive the person away from Kinghun, but his plan failed when the person instead turned out to be a ball of sunshine. Like Yunho, I was also ready to hate the person, but the cute blonde had taken our hearts with just one smile. Despite what he likes to believe about himself, Yunho is softer than he lets on. So after the introductions, the cutie started talking to him softly, and Yunho can't bring himself to hate cutie with sparkling eyes. Yunho tried to act annoyed, but the cutie seems oblivious to his feelings and keeps talking about how he is happy to get a new friend. Yunho tries to change his course of action as he instead tries to dishearten the cutie by saying how he is being a burden on Kinghun. His words was obviously effective as the cutie starts to look dejected to hear that, but his sad face makes Yunho feel bad for him. In another attempt to drive him away, our Angel points out how he is speaking informally, and if he didn't stop, Yunho would do the same. Once again his plan fails as the cutie takes this as an invitation to be Yunho's friend and hugs him tightly to mark the start of their new friendship. When he tells his band members about it, they also find the gesture very sweet, but they also find it funny that Yunho had to hug his rival on their first meeting. His band members are typical best friends, as they are not worried about his feelings and instead find the situation funny. Yunho tries to argue, saying that it is weird that he was rude to the cutie, but the person wasn't fazed and instead called him a friend, even hugged him. His members try to make him feel better by saying that he must be really nice to the person, but Yunho is still annoyed that his attempts to drive away his rival have failed and thinks that the boy is very cunning. As he again repeats his sad story, he is shocked when his friend guesses his crush is Kinghun, even though he never mentioned the name. The band members talk about how they can understand his feelings as Kinghun is very kind, as he brings them food every now and then. The person who brings you food always has a special place in your heart. They remember the time when Kinghun brought them food during their practices, and Yunho always welcomed him with a big smile. Yunho's team members start to discuss among themselves whether Yunho should pursue Kinghun or not. Yunho is silently listening to their discussion, waiting for what could come out of his friend's discussion about his future. His band members are lovely, as they genuinely want to find a perfect solution to his problem, even though it looks like they are finding it childish. Meanwhile, the Greek god visits Kinghun's house, seeming to be friends with the young boy living there. We will refer to the handsome stranger as Greek god until we find his real name. The mysterious handsome stranger reveals the truth about his life, saying that they are doors connecting life to the afterlife. According to him, the souls that leave their bodies pass through them when going to the afterlife, and any interaction that occurs in that process is just to send souls to the afterlife and nothing more. When they are helping a soul cross the border, the lives of that human flash before his eyes like they were his memories. Having to look through a human's memories all his life made him realize that humans are always complicated and selfish, which made him hate humans. Currently, he just entered Kinghun's home, where the little cutie excitedly welcomed him, saying that if he had come a little earlier, he could have introduced him to someone. We need to wait some more before our main leads can have a proper introduction. The Greek god wants to know what his friend is talking about, but before he can ask, he smells the familiar scent of the human he bumped into on the street. Little cutie informs him that Kinghun's friend Yunho has come by, and from now on, he is going to hang out with him more often as they are friends now. The Greek god is not happy with his friend's excitement and warns him not to get close to the human. Little cutie is offended by his statement and asks him not to speak ill of the humans, as they are good people who helped him when he was on the verge of dying. He finally revealed the truth about his life, saying how he, a nine-tailed fox, appeared at Kinghun's doorstep and said he needed 100 days of human energy in order to extend his life. At that critical time, Kinghun helped him without thinking, and he is not like other humans, as he wasn't even afraid when he introduced himself as a fox. The Greek god instantly scolds him, saying that he is not going to die, and then adds that they are not humans but mythical creatures. He reminds his little friend that nothing good comes out of getting close to humans, while remembering the time when little cutie was severely injured because of the humans. Seeing his friend on the verge of life and death due to humans, Hanwell's hate toward humans is understandable. Cutie dejectedly argues that all the humans were not bad, but since they are a mythical fox and a mythical tiger, there may have been things they didn't understand about them. He continues his argument, saying that after all their 1,000 years of life, they just helped the Grim Reaper by guiding lost souls roaming in this world to the afterlife. But now he is sick of it and wants to find his own life. After seeing his friends wish to live a normal life, Greek god softens and says that he just doesn't want him to get hurt. When he is assured that Cutie is fine, Greek god wants to take his leave, but his friend stops him. Cutie advises him that since Yunho is going to hang out with him often, he can't just appear out of thin air. Foxy thinks hard about some possible places that Greek god can use to transport and ends up deciding that he should use the bathroom because it is the most unlikely place to get caught. The Greek god is grumpy for going through so much effort for a mere human, but Foxy convinces him by saying that he is the one mooching off of Kinghun. Looking at cute little Foxy, I would also agree with whatever he says without even asking a single question. Greek god again loses the argument with his friend and changes the topic, instead saying that he heard about his friend helping Kinghun to stop seeing spirits. Little Cutie says that it was out of gratitude and explains that Kinghun has very strong energy, so he thought spirits would avoid him, but they kept flocking to him. Kinghun was also able to see the spirits with his physical eyes, which resulted in him struggling psychologically, so Foxy used little of his power to make it stop. Greek god sighs deeply at his friend's kindness as Foxy continues that every day when he swallows a fox bead from Kinghun's energy, he wonders if it's okay for him to do this. Earlier, when Yunho said he was being a burden, it made him wonder if he was really being bothersome. So now he wants to do anything he can to repay Kinghun. Greek god finally stops arguing, saying he will be careful as his friend requested. Foxy happily hugs the mythical tiger, who is thinking about how Yunho seems like a selfish human who made his friend Naru doubt himself. This makes his hate for humans increase. I wonder if Greek god will be able to think the same about Yunho after looking at his dazzling beauty. Greek god suddenly remembers yesterday's events and tells Naru that when he was hiding yesterday, a human was running and bumped into him. Naru is surprised to hear that because when they are hiding, people can't see or touch them. Greek god further tells him that he thought the human would run through him like others, but it was the opposite. He asks Naru if he thinks that this particular human stood at the crossroads of life and death before. Foxy replies that it can be right as if that human met a Grim Reaper before while at the crossroads of life and death. He can see the creature even when it is hiding, and it is also possible that he already met Hanwol. Listening to his friend, Greek god replies that he doesn't remember their meeting earlier, but he remembers that the human has a very sweet scent, a scent he had smelled before somewhere. He was left confused by the scent alone, when the little human's face bumped straight into his chest. The thing that most shocked and bothered him was seeing a grown man crying so sorrowfully. Naru is surprised to hear that as he suspiciously stares at his friend, Hanwol. The Greek god's name is finally revealed, but let's just call him Han for short as a curious friend. He asks about how he was bothered by a human crying. Foxy is not as innocent as we thought him to be. Han says that it can be possible because that person is not an ordinary human. But Naru is fascinated by his friend showing new emotions and suggests that maybe Hanwol has fallen for that person. He asks Han if his heart skipped a beat, but he denies the allegations, saying he hasn't experienced anything like that. Naru still doesn't give up, as he says that he is hoping Han will meet that person again, as he is too curious about that. Like the Foxy, I am also waiting for Hanwol to fall madly in love with someone. Meanwhile, Yunho is in his apartment, coughing as he worriedly thinks about how his throat feels a bit sore. Yunho can't seem to stop thinking about his tragic past, as he remembers that when he was 14 years old, his family was going home from dinner, and he was happy to be with them. His happiness was short-lived, as a car crossed the yellow line from the other side and the drunk driver crashed into their car. His entire family died on the spot, while he suffered severe injuries. After the accident, he couldn't accept reality for a while and looked for his family whenever he woke up, momentarily forgetting that they were gone. The guilt of surviving alone and nightmares of the accident followed him everywhere. He lost his family in a single moment, but the justice system in the country didn't even punish the murderer. At that time, he was in middle school. Yunho was enraged at the murderer. He continued to suffer from the guilt of surviving alone. Yunho was completely broken and spent each day mourning his helplessness about not being able to do anything to avenge his family. No one talked to him in the school, but he wasn't bothered by it and instead preferred it that way. When he joined high school, he thought the same routine would continue there, but to his surprise, Kinghun approached him. Despite his continued rejections, Kinghun managed to get him out of his lonely bubble. Yunho remembers how the mere existence of Kinghun comforted him because in the moments he spent with Kinghun, he could forget about the tragic incidents of his life. All the years of his friendship with Kinghun, he was in a happy frenzy. And when he turned 20, Kinghun first asked him if there was anything he wanted to tell him. He could do it without hesitation. Yunho was surprised to hear that, but when Kinghun tried to change the topic and leave, he stopped him, saying there was something he wanted to share. Sometimes you just need one sincere friend, and I am glad our Yunho had someone he could rely on. This was the first time he shared the tragic incident about his family with someone, and he felt like he was just waiting for someone to pull out the traumatic things he was hiding inside. Kinghun thanked him for trusting him and then said that he also wanted to share something with him. He had told Yunho that he could see spirits as his grandmother was a shaman, and he thinks the spirits think that he could help relieve them of their grudges. While remembering his memories with Kinghun, Yunho thinks to himself that in the past, it was enough for him if he could stay friends with Kinghun, but he can't do it now. In his mission to drive Naru away, he pays him another visit, and when Foxy opens the door with a welcoming smile, Yunho is forced to admit that his rival is pretty, but he still can't understand why Kinghun likes him. He is annoyed when the first thing Naru says is how he looks adorable with the bib he is wearing. Yunho irritatedly replies that it is because he has to take care of his throat as a singer, but the words are stuck in his throat when he notices Hanwol standing there with his sinfully charming looks. The first thing that comes to his mind is how unrealistically good the stranger looks, and even when Naru is introducing them, all he can think about is how super tall Hanwol is. Yunho is so understandable here, as I have also fallen for our super handsome mythical tiger. To his surprise, Hanwol gets closer and backs him up into the wall, making him blush. Yunho's face starts to heat up as Hanwol leans closer to him. The Greek god seems oblivious to his feelings as he stares at him non-stop and continues to lessen the space between them. Yunho's heart starts beating really fast because of their close proximity, and he is unable to move his body under the influence of this Greek god. Yunho is completely still as Hanwol sniffs his neck, leaving him shocked. Han is thinking about how Yunho smells nicer than the last time they met, while the only thing Yunho can think about is how the stranger he just met looks like a dashing celebrity. Hanwol suddenly speaks, asking if he remembers him, but Yunho is still just lost in his dreamy looks. He couldn't stop comparing Han to others, thinking about how he is even taller than his band member Yundu. Han again says that they have met before, to which Yunho replies that he doesn't remember meeting before, while once again mesmerized by the deep voice of the Greek god. Han reminds him that he ran into him a few days ago, and when Yunho finally indicates that he remembers their meeting, Han directly asks him why he was crying that day. Yunho is annoyed by the question and sharply asks why he should tell him that, while wishing to himself that Han would say his name in that deep voice. Han again asks him if he has ever been at the crossroads of life and death, shocking Yunho with his question. Naru, who has been watching the interaction silently all this time, asks them if they know each other, to which Yunho replies that he doesn't know who this person is. Naru finally introduces them to each other formally, and Yunho raises his hand for the handshake but is left hanging. Hanwol repeats his name, sending Yunho into a happy frenzy as his earlier wish of Han saying his name has come true, and it feels as good as he imagined. He is looking forward to the handshake, wanting to touch Han's hand while feeling like he will fall in love, but to his disappointment, Han doesn't shake his hand and instead leaves from there. He is completely shocked and instantly takes back his earlier statement about falling in love. Our cutie Foxy comes to the rescue as he holds his hand and apologizes for his friend's behavior, saying Han tends to be cold to humans, but he didn't mean anything bad by it. Yunho is still upset about the rude treatment he got from the handsome stranger, and his mood is further ruined when Naru hugs him, saying they can still hang out together. While leaving Kinghun's place, Han wonders if Yunho is really just an ordinary human because the scent has left him confused. He didn't expect the person he bumped into to be this close, and he smirked while thinking about Yunho. The mythical tiger is suspicious. From that onward, Yunho decides to torment his enemy and goes to Kinghun's place every chance he gets, fully dressed up, enhancing his killer looks. For most of his visits, Han is also present there, but he is more focused on getting close to his rival and getting revenge. During these visits, whenever he tried to talk to Hanwol, he received the same cold treatment, which annoyed him to no end. Despite his cold behavior toward Yunho, Hanwol starts to grow curious about him and asks Kinghun if Yunho ever stood at the crossroads of life and death. Kinghun tells him that when Yunho was 14, he lost his family in an accident and went into a coma. He says that Yunho is still traumatized and struggles with it even now, but this is all he can reveal about his matter, and it is better if Han hears the details directly from Yunho. After finding out about Yunho's accident, Han tries to remember if he ever met him before, but he doesn't recall anything about it. He thinks about Kinghun, who mentioned Yunho had a sad past, but he seems fine to him as he remembers him playing happily with Naru. Later, the four of them gather at Kinghun's apartment, where Yunho is irritated by continuously losing the games and is hurt when Kinghun and Hanwol both seem more concerned about Naru. He is not very surprised about Kinghun, as he is always nice to everyone, but seeing Hanwol so concerned, he feels jealous, as Han seems to be the kind of person who is only devoted to the person he loves, just waiting for someone to realize his hidden feelings. The three of them finally turn toward him, noticing his arm has swollen due to Naru flicking his wrists earlier as a punishment. He is annoyed when Foxy hugs him as an apology and tells him to get off of him, as he was the one who hit him the hardest. Han interrupts them as he asks Yunho if he is okay and says that he doesn't seem like he is going to win, so will he continue to play. Yunho is surprised by the sudden concern Han is showing, as he always ignores him and sharply replies that Han is the one who is too scared of being hit to play. When Han stares at him, he instantly retreats, worried that he went too far, but unbeknownst to him, both mythical creatures are amused by his behavior. Kinghun suddenly comes forward and holds Yunho's wrist, asking him if he is okay as his arm is all red. Han doesn't seem happy with their closeness as he announces that he will play too, and they all continue the game of flicking each other's wrists. Yunho is the victim of the game as his arm completely goes numb soon. And again, Foxy comes to his rescue, stopping the game quickly, worried that Yunho's arm is going to burst if they continue like that. After the game ends, Yunho is about to leave when Kinghun approaches him, saying that he is happy that Naru and Yunho have become so close. Yunho thinks to himself about how he is just pretending to like Naru, and they are not close at all, but he can't voice this in front of Kinghun. Oblivious to his thoughts, Kinghun is concerned about his arm, which makes Yunho happy as all the torture he has endured seems worth this moment. He is surprised when Kinghun whispers to him that, thanks to Naru, he doesn't see ghosts anymore. Yunho is disappointed to hear that, as he thought Kinghun seeing spirits was their little secret, and the possibility that Naru is that important to Kinghun is breaking his heart. He staggers by the stairs while thinking about all this and loses his balance. But before he can hit the floor, Han comes to his rescue and catches him in his arms. Even though he pretends to hate humans, Han is still quick to help this one. Yunho's heart goes out of control, and the only thing Han can think about is the sweet scent coming from Yunho. They both come out of their trance when Kinghun says that if Han hadn't acted quickly, Yunho would have been seriously hurt. Yunho just says that he is going while thinking about how Han will saved him despite standing far away from where he was. They both walk out of the apartment together, and Yunho thanks Han for saving him earlier. Han coldly replies that he just helped him because Naru considers him a friend. And if Yunho gets hurt, Naru will be bored, so Yunho shouldn't get any wrong ideas. Han is starting to seem like a red flag to me as he keeps hurting our angel, Yunho. Yunho calmly replies that he knows while begrudgingly thinking to himself about how lucky Naru is, as everyone seems to care about him. He quickly walks away from there, and Han just stands there, thinking about how he thought it was easy to read Yunho, but it seems like he was wrong in his assumption. A few days later, Yunho joins Naru and Hanwol as they all go skateboarding, but the tiger refuses to ride the board. Yunho is annoyed by his behavior and leaves the board there, saying he can do whatever he wants. He is still hooked on how handsome Han is, and his voice still sounds magical to him, so he decides to let him be, even if he just wants to stand there like a folding screen. He and Naru start skateboarding, and Naru asks him if he comes here often to ride the skateboard. Yunho replies to him that he likes to take walks there when he is done with concerts, and walking while listening to music makes all his stress go away. Naru mentions how this spot is great, and the comment sends Yunho to his past as he reveals that when he was young, he used to come there with his parents and younger brother Yunjun. They would bike or take walks together, and even though he can't do it anymore, whenever he doesn't have many concerts, he and Kinghun visit the place and talk a lot while enjoying the view. Listening to him, Naru says that this is the place Yunho shared with the people precious to him, and he should come here with Kinghun next time. Yunho is furious to hear that, but he keeps his composure and asks Naru if he wants to try something more fun. Foxy happily agrees but starts to hesitate when Yunho asks him to skate down a slope. Naru is a cutie, but he is way too innocent. He voices his concern, but Yunho assures him that he can handle it while silently wishing for Naru to fall flat. He is disappointed when Naru safely makes it down the slope and begrudgingly praises his skating skills. Hanwol is suspicious and asks Yunho if he pushed Naru, hoping Naru would get hurt. Yunho is surprised to hear that and sheepishly says that he is going to ride down the slope. He starts skateboarding down, grumbling to himself, and fails to notice a cycle coming on the road. When he notices this, Yunho can only close his eyes, waiting for the impact, but to his surprise, he doesn't hit the ground. When he opens his eyes, he finds himself lying face down on Hanwol's chest, who is scolding him for blindly skating down the slope. He sits straight and blushes, noticing their position, but Hanwol seems unfazed as he mentions how dangerous it is for him to skateboard blindly like that. Yunho just sits there, blankly staring at Hanwol, who softly says that Yunho is heavy. He finally comes out of his trance, and while trying to get up, Yunho falls forward once again but quickly gets up, trying to calm his beating heart. As Hanwol approaches him from behind, he thanks him for saving him. But Hanwol is not focused on that and instead asks him if he realizes how dangerous what he did to Naru was. Yunho politely apologizes, saying he didn't mean to do it, but Hanwol says that he should apologize to Naru and tells him to go play with his friend, as he is about to walk away. Hanwol tells him to not get the wrong idea, but Yunho interrupts him, saying he knows he saved him only because Naru considers him as a friend. Just then, Naru comes to where they are, and Yunho joins him as they start to ride the skateboard again. While moving on his board, Yunho can only think about how nice Hanwol's body is, but he quickly scolds himself for his impure thoughts. Meanwhile, Hanwol doesn't understand why he cares about that human getting hurt and tries to remind himself that he shouldn't get involved. But he can't stop thinking about how strange Yunho is. Hanwol is standing at the crossroads of life and death, helping a lost soul go to the afterlife. He thinks that if you do the same thing every day, it is only when there's the occasional variation that you can test your power. When facing something new, instead of getting annoyed, he finds it more interesting. The recent situation he is in also seems interesting to him, as he is helping a Jigui, a fire ghost whose love for another person sets their hearts ablaze and turns into a ball of fire. The Jigui shouts in pain that he wants to meet his lover once more, but Han is unfazed, as he just says to the fire ghost that he can either choose to go to the afterlife voluntarily or he will have to disappear from this world without any trace. The Jigui grows furious and roars that he can't die like this, but Hanwol is unfazed by the outburst and simply defends against the flame. Hanwol takes this as the Jigui's refusal to go to the afterlife and opts to get rid of the Jigui right at that moment. Before he can kill the fire ghost, Naru steps in and stops him from doing so. Hanwol argues that Jigui will just harm the living humans with that fiery body of his, and it is best to get rid of him before things get worse. Just on cue, the ghost starts screaming due to the immense pain and begs Han not to kill him, saying he doesn't want to die. Hanwol coldly replies that he is already dead and should give up, but Naru stops his attack again by cutting Hanwol's bind on the Jigui. The foxy then turns toward the ghost and says to him that if he disappeared like this, it would be too sad for both him and the person he loves. Naru politely requests that the ghost get his original form back and go to the afterlife through him. Naru explains to the fire ghost that he is a ball of fire right now and it will hurt the person he loves if he touches her. The Jigui finally gives up as he dejectedly confesses that he doesn't want to hurt his love and then passes through Naru to go to the afterlife. He stumbles back due to the impact of the soul passing through him, but Han quickly catches him while scolding him for overexerting himself when he told him not to do so. Naru assures him that he is fine, as Kinghun gives him energy every day, so he is getting stronger little by little. Hanwol argues that he should have just let him do it, but Foxy sharply replies that he was just going to get rid of him. Han still doesn't give up, as he says that the person had become an evil spirit because he caused trouble, and getting rid of one instead of sending it to the afterlife wouldn't have been a problem. Han is left shocked when Naru tells him to give the spirits half the attention he gives to Yunho, with a last remark about going home. Naru disappears before Hanwol can even reply and he is left standing confused. Meanwhile, in the studio, Yoondu Kim asks Yunho to bring Hanwol to the studio. Seeing his surprised face, Yoondu mentions how he has been talking nonstop about that Hanwol guy and that he should just bring him over. Others also join, saying that it is the first time Yunho talked about someone other than Kinghun, so they are all curious. Yunho gives in but is confused about what excuse he can use to bring Hanwol there. One of his friends again comes to his rescue as they remind him that he said Naru wanted to come here, so he should just invite them both. As their practice ended for the day, Yunho received compliments and head pats from his friends. His bond with his band members is so precious. Just as he walks out of the studio, he spots Hanwol walking on the street with some weird floating entities surrounding him. Yunho quickly hides behind a pillar. Hanwol asks the floating orbs if they agree with what Naru said earlier, finding that the goblin flames have the same opinion as Naru. He explains himself, saying that he is just attracted to that human scent, which is strange as he can even feel it now on the tip of his nose. Yunho is still watching him silently and is amazed by the fact that Han is so handsome that even fireflies flock to him. Yunho really thought those were fireflies. He quickly turns around while thinking about how Han looks breathtaking when he smiles, but it is a pity that he always scowls while looking at him. Yunho is about to walk away while thinking that Kinghun is the best when a small floating orb floats to where he is hiding. Still thinking that the goblin flame is a firefly, Yunho talks to it, asking why he is there by himself. He chuckles when the firefly touches his cheek. He happily talks to the little creature, asking if it also saw the handsome guy with a nice voice, and says that he is sure he is just a nuisance to him. He wants to say something else, but the firefly slams into his cheek, and feeling the stinging sensation, he decides to just leave. Some days later, Yunho finally invites Naru and Han to one of his band's rehearsals. Naru enthusiastically greets Yunho while Hanwol is flushed to see Yunho's exposed milky shoulder. Ignoring Han's stare, Yunho introduces his band members to them, telling them about the leader and drummer, Jongho Woo, bass player Yoondu Kim, and guitarist Jin Ha. Jongho asks him to reveal his nickname. and he is forced to reveal his name, Hoppity Cutie, given to him by his teammates. After the introductions, Naru happily moves around to check the musical instruments, while Yunho approaches Hanwol, saying he wants to talk about something. Yunho apologizes to Han for the time he fell while skateboarding. Hanwol tells him to don't do something so dangerous anymore, while thinking to himself about how his heart pounded back then too, as Yunho's scent is extremely sweet. According to him, Yunho's scent got so intense that his mind almost passed out for a moment, and he felt like he might have pulled Yunho toward him unconsciously. The band members are listening to them attentively, and hearing that Yunho touched Han's chest, their imagination immediately races to Yunho being intimate with Han in private. Their conversation is interrupted by Naru's giggling, so instead of talking further to Hanwol, Yunho announces that they should practice. Naru and Hanwol are mesmerized when Yunho starts singing. He is our precious superstar. Han thinks to himself about how it is hard to believe that this guy and that dopey one are the same person, and it must be the act of singing that brings this unique look to Yunho's face. Once done with the practice, Naru also joins them to try the drums, but Han rejects the invitation from Yunho to do the same. Suddenly, Han notices a goblin flame coming out of Yunho's clothes. Surprised, he rushes to catch the sneaky little thing and almost hits Yunho in the process. The goblin flame sticks itself behind Yunho, but Hanwol scolds it, saying it is against the rules to touch humans. He is annoyed when it sends him a message through the touch, calling him an idiot. The goblin flame continues to hit Hanwol as if to scold the tiger. He almost slips, but Yunho breaks his fall and happily says that this time he saved him. Our superstar is astonished to see a firefly during the day and voices his surprise, which shocks Han as these are not supposed to be visible to humans. Naru looks at the two and finds their interaction cute. After a while, Yunho says to Naru that he has a pretty voice and should be more confident. Naru replies that he wants to be as good as him. They happily talk among themselves as Yunho says that he can't be a superstar overnight. Han is amazed to see this, as he had never seen Naru this happy, and even though Yunho has been mean to him until now, he doesn't seem like a bad human after all. With Naru hugging him from behind, Yunho asks for Hanwol's opinion on their performance and blushes deeply when Han smiles at him, saying their performance was pretty cool. Yunho turns toward Naru again, saying they both should come to the concert next time, as Kinghun does it all the time. Surprisingly, Hanwol doesn't seem very happy with Yunho mentioning Kinghun's name again, making Jongho curious of this reaction. They are still at the studio, where his group members are showing Naru his old pictures as he tries his best to not let Foxy look at his embarrassing pictures. Hanwol is watching them with a smile when the group leader, Jongho, grabs his attention, saying that he and Yunho seem much closer than he expected. Just like me, everyone from their friends are already shipping them. Han replies that he doesn't think that is the case, but Jongho insists that he is sure since Yunho brought them here. Hanwol argues that Kinghun must have asked him to be nice to them. Jongho chuckles after hearing his answer, and since they have always been best friends, Yunho might indeed have done that for Kinghun. Jongho changes the topic instantly as he starts talking about how all Yunho knows is music. He mentions how difficult it must have been due to the past incident, yet Yunho persevered. Hearing about the accident, Han wondered if it was the same time when Yunho was at the crossroads of life and death. Oblivious to his thoughts, Jongho continues that Yunho is strong in this sense, but he probably needs someone to rely on. According to him, Yunho's first impression is not very friendly, but once he gets close to someone, he is very clingy and likes skinship. To stir Han's emotions more, Jongho ends his speech by saying that if he notices Yunho's behavior with Kinghun, he will understand what he means. Han sharply asks why he is saying this, but Jongho suddenly goes into a playful mode as he laughs and says that he is just talking because Han is actually listening to him. Jongho mentions how he wants Yunho to be happy, making Han think about how humans are weird. Jongho also wanted to say something else, but he didn't get the chance as Yunho dragged him away. Later, when they are walking out of the studio, Naru talks about how Yunho was super cool today and how his band members were also very friendly. He suddenly jumps on Hanwol's back. They are so cute, saying that he likes how his friend is becoming more open with people lately and asking for his honest opinion on whether he is enjoying human company. Hanwol refuses to give in, as he just replies that maybe he is enjoying it a little, but humans are still humans. Naru is not happy with his reply and asks him to stop thinking like a mythical creature that has been alive for more than 1,000 years. Han suddenly stops as he remembers that he forgot to take that goblin flame that got out of the line from Yunho. Back in the studio, Yunho asks his leader what he talked about with Han. But instead of giving a clear answer, Jongho changes the topic, talking about how their youngest has a tough road ahead. A few hours later, Yunho is holding drinks as he is planning to go to Kinghun's workplace. Han, who has come back to retrieve the goblin flame, spots it in Yunho's pocket but doesn't know how to get it out. He silently chases Yunho, still thinking about ways to get the goblin flame out, and notices our superstar suddenly stopping. He follows his line of sight and notices Naru standing there with Kinghun as they sweetly talk to each other. While seeing his crush happy with his love, Yunho thinks to himself that he wants to stay by Kinghun's side just like that, but he can't do anything if he gets rejected, even as a friend. He turns around with tears in his eyes and comes face to face with Han, who is standing right behind him. Seeing him sad like that, Han starts to get worried about him, even though he can't understand his own feelings. To his shock, Yunho suddenly starts crying and shouts at him, saying he hates both him and his friend for showing up in his life. Yunho runs away from there, sobbing, while Han is left standing there, thinking about if this is Yunho's real face that he was hiding behind his kindness. He is so quick to jump to conclusions. Despite his negative thoughts about Yunho, his chest starts to feel tight and his breathing gets shallow when he sees Yunho crying like that. Meanwhile, Yunho is lying in bed, regretting how he took all his anger out on Hanwol. A few minutes earlier, he had received a message from Kinghun, who asked for his help in changing his style as he wanted to look good for Naru. Despite his anger and devastation, he can't get rude to his first love and agrees to help style him. The next day, Yunho accompanies Kinghun as they go to the salon to change his look. Yunho sees his friend getting ready while thinking about how he used to walk around with that bummy look because he was being harassed by spirits, and Yunho was the only one who knew about his charming looks. After getting his hair done, Kinghun comes to him, asking for his opinion, and Yunho generously praises his look. I didn't expect Kinghun to be such a treat to the eyes, but the makeover changed him completely. Yunho says how he looks good, and since he doesn't see spirits anymore, he doesn't need glasses now. Kinghun replies that the glasses are like his safety blanket, but it's good because he doesn't need them anymore, and then asks Yunho's help to pick out new clothes for him. Yunho is surprised to hear that since he thinks Kinghun's current clothes are also good, but he still joins him in buying new clothes. Yunho helps Kinghun pick suitable clothes for him while all the time trying to control his rapid heartbeat due to Kinghun's bright smile. When they are walking back after the shopping, Yunho's mood gets ruined when Kinghun says that he wishes Naru would like his new look. Kinghun keeps talking about how he never changed his look in his 10 years of knowing Yunho. Listening to him, the superstar replies that he is also wondering if he really is the same Kinghun who has a patchy beard and long, unkempt hair. Yunho flushes when Kinghun playfully asks him if he has become too handsome, but he quickly controls himself and wittily replies that it is just because he was the one who styled him. Kinghun suddenly gets serious as he thanks Yunho for being there for him and always helping him whenever he asks for him. Yunho is surprised by the sudden cringy talk but replies that he is the one who should be thankful, as Kinghun befriended him despite being a loner and helped him whenever he had panic attacks due to his trauma. Yunho is again startled when Kinghun says it was because Yunho had intrigued him to the point that he wants to keep being by Yunho's side. Yunho got overwhelmed with the comments and suggests they sit at the bench near them. Kinghun continues to spill his emotions, saying that Yunho was the only friend he could really open up to as everyone left him when he revealed that he could see spirits. He says that he started to keep it secret after that, but he felt like Yunho would believe him, so he didn't hesitate and revealed it to him. Yunho warmly replies that it must be because they are so much alike in the way they think and feel. Kinghun agrees that it must be the reason and then invites Yunho for dinner with him. Yunho is happy to spend time with his friend, but his happiness is ruined when Foxy and Han also joined them. During dinner, other people in the restaurant kept praising their looks. Yunho may be pouting, but looking at Kinghun's happy face lifts his mood. Yunho shares some glances with Han while feeling uncomfortable for snapping at him like that earlier. Yunho's bright smile in the presence of Kinghun reminds him of Jongho's words from earlier, and how he said Yunho liked skinship. When they finish eating, Kinghun hugs him as a thank you for helping him in the transformation. They are both in their world, and Han is observing their skinship keenly, unable to hold back from glaring at the two. Han has started to feel jealous, and I am living to see how he will control his emotions. Hanwol is surprised by Yunho's change of mood, as he looked so broken just a day before, but he is smiling like that today. Seeing him stare at them like that, Yunho figures that Han must be upset because he got mad at him for what happened before. He comes out of his thoughts when Kinghun asks Naru how he looks, to which Foxy replies that he looks more handsome than before. Kinghun says that it is because Yunho had put his outfit together. Han glares at them with more intensity, which makes Yunho feel uncomfortable in his skin. Yunho tries to defuse the situation by saying to Han that he should also try to change his style. He always wears a black shirt, and he can at least change the color of his clothes to white. When Han keeps glaring at him, he quickly says that he can forget about it if he doesn't want to, while thinking to himself about how he is starting to panic due to Han's continuous glaring. Just then, he notices a family sitting at a table across from them, and it instantly reminds him of his happy memories with his family. Kinghun and Han both notice a sudden change in his mood, and Kinghun is the one who takes action first as he asks Yunho to try more food. He instantly forgets about the family as Kinghun starts to talk about how his new, extremely good looks are just because of Yunho. seeing them being friendly with each other like that. Hanwol wonders if the sweet smell of Yunho that made him dizzy was his feelings for Kinghun. When they are all leaving after eating, Yunho stops Han and asks if he had to scowl all the time when everyone else was trying to enjoy themselves. Han stays silent in reply, which makes Yunho think that he is still mad because of yesterday, and he tries to apologize for his behavior. To his surprise, Han still doesn't reply and tries to leave, but Yunho stops him, pointing out how he shouldn't be rude when someone is apologizing to him. Han suddenly says to him that his smell is making him dizzy, but Yunho can't understand what he is talking about. Hanwol finally decides to speak, as he sharply says that the way Yunho is acting toward him and Naru is fake, just to keep his good image in front of Kinghun. Yunho angrily says that he shouldn't interpret things as he wishes, but to his shock, Han rudely asks him if he wants to be Kinghun's boyfriend or something. He is giving possessive boyfriend vibes, without giving him a chance to reply. Han continues his rant, saying that humans always act like they are good on the outside and always wear fake smiles. He accuses Yunho of wearing a mask whenever he is with them so he can look good in front of Kinghun. Yunho shouts at him, saying he is not someone who should talk to him like that. Yunho is thinking to himself that the accusation of him being double-faced in front of them was true at first, but now he is not sure about his own intentions. Yunho starts to tear up, surprisingly feeling more hurt by Han's words than he expected. Seeing him cry like that, Han wants to comfort him, but he controls himself and walks away from there. Later, Hanwol is standing alone by a tree, thinking about how his hand almost automatically touched Yunho when he was crying. He remembers Jongho's words while thinking that Yunho cries at little things. It made him wonder what was so strong about that little human. The next day, Naru scolds Hanwol for his behavior with Yunho and asks him to apologize, saying he was too harsh with him. Hanwol refuses to accept his mistake, saying he just questioned Yunho about being fake to them. Naru argues that it is different from being fake, but Hanwol gets angry at his statement and asks how he can still be accepting of humans after being betrayed by them. Naru sharply replies that he wasn't betrayed by anyone and asks Han why he is so angry with Yunho when he is a good person. Hanwol doesn't back down as he reminds Naru about the time when he was treated badly after the person he sacrificed himself to save died. Naru is heartbroken to hear that as he remembers the horrific incidents of his past. A few centuries back, a group had captured him in his fox form and was planning to sell him for a huge amount of money. That time, a young man had asked the group to let him go, but when they refused, he paid them a lot of money and bought the fox. Hanwol, in his tiger form, was observing the situation as he watched Naru fearfully approach the person who saved him and bite him on the hand. The young man pulls Foxy into his lap, softly saying that he is not trying to hurt him, and helps untie the rope from his leg. He says to Naru that animals that have unique looks like him shouldn't come down the mountain, as there are groups always looking to capture them. As soon as Naru is free, he runs away from there while the young man looks at the bite mark on his hand, hoping that the fox's leg is okay. That night, Naru had sneaked into the young man's house in his human form and was healing the wound on his hand when the man woke up. He is shocked to see a young boy in his room, but Naru quickly explains that he is the fox that he saved this morning. He explained that he had bitten the man earlier, thinking he was trying to harm him. Now, he wanted to heal the wound. The young man is speechless to see his hand free of any marks, but he soon comes to terms with it and starts to get close to Naru. This was how Naru first met the young man, Hyun, and it was love at first sight for them. Naru had broken the rules and had his life pay for Hyun's health as he shared his yin energy in the fox bead with Hyun and unnaturally delayed his death. Eventually, Hyun gave him a bead, saying that even if he died, he would always be with him in there. They parted ways, crying, as Hyun promised to protect him in his next life. Soon after that, Hyun's father found out about their relationship and couldn't accept the fact that his son was in love with a mythical creature whose gender is unclear instead of some high-class human. In an effort to protect Naru from any harm, Hyun died while his father spread the rumor that Naru had bewitched his son. He had announced a generous reward for whoever brought Naru dead in front of him, and the humans started to attack Naru for the reward. Amidst all this chaos, Naru had to send Hyun's spirit to the afterlife by himself, so he was too traumatized and devastated due to the shock. At that time, Hanwol had come to his rescue and protected him from the humans who went after him like crazy for the reward. If it weren't for Han, Naru would have died, as all he could think of was following Hyun. As a mythical creature, he wasn't even allowed to harm humans, so he couldn't understand why they were so against him when all he did was protect the person he loved the most. While remembering all this, Naru relives the pain, as he thinks it all happened because he is not a human. Hanwol is angry to hear that, as he says that Naru had no fault in it and all this happened because humans are selfish. Han then softly holds his shoulder, saying that he won't want to see him suffer again. If Naru hadn't tried to save Hyun back then, he wouldn't be dying right now and wouldn't have to rely on the yang energy of a mere human. Naru smiles brightly, saying that he doesn't regret anything and is happy to meet Kinghun because things won't be the same as back then. On the other side, Kinghun calls Yunho, asking him if he is okay, as he heard from Naru that Han was being mean to him. Kinghun is such a green flag. Yunho casually replies that it was nothing and asks if this is the reason Kinghun called him. His friend replies that he called because 2 days from now they are visiting Yunho's family and asks what time he is going. Yunho says that he is going to go by himself this time, and he is grateful for Kinghun joining him all these years, but this time he has some private stuff to talk about without him being there. Kinghun asks him what he shouldn't know, but Yunho dismisses him, saying he can't tell him. Kinghun asks him to call him if he needs someone to talk to and asks him to bring the flowers he got for his family. Yunho thanked him for being there for him, and they hung up the phone. The next day, Yunho dresses up neatly, looking very charming as he gets ready to go to Kinghun's place, but the possibility of seeing Hanwol again worries him. He plops down on his sofa while thinking about whether he really seems like a mean human being to Hanwol and can't understand why he is so upset about Han's opinion of him. All this ordeal makes him wish that Han was always mean to him instead of helping him, as he couldn't help but fall for him more. Before visiting his family, Yunho goes to Kinghun's apartment, where Naru gives him the flowers Kinghun bought for his family. After receiving the flowers, he turns around to leave, and as Naru hurriedly tries to stop him, he hurts his feet with a pair of scissors. Yunho rushes to help him, asking him if he is okay, but Naru assures him he is okay. He apologizes to Yunho for Hanwol's rude behavior, saying it is his fault that Han's being cold to him as he is just worried about him being hurt. Yunho replies that it is okay and says that they should treat his wound first, before they can get up. Hanwol comes there, and seeing Naru's condition, he thinks that Yunho has hurt him. He rushes inside and harshly pushes Yunho to the side while shouting that he always wanted to hurt Naru and finally got his wish. Yunho sits there, shocked, as Naru tries to calm Han, telling him that he hurt himself. When his anger subsides a little, he notices Yunho sitting there, shocked and surprised by the fact that Yunho might be afraid of him. Suddenly Yunho stands up, shouting with tears in his eyes that this is all Han takes him for, and storms away from there. After he leaves, Naru reminds Han that he has agreed to apologize to Yunho, making him regret his actions more. Meanwhile, Yunho visits his family in a memorial house and tells them about how Kinghun wanted to come, but he stopped him this time for he wants to get some alone time with them. He places the flower there as he tells his family that Kinghun doesn't see him as someone more than a friend and reveals how Kinghun isn't interested in girls. He tells his family that he came to meet some new people recently, and even though they are good people, he keeps clashing with one of them. He says that he doesn't know why that person's words hurt him, even though his face and voice are totally his type. He concludes that the other guy's personality doesn't match with his. He suddenly breaks out in tears, complaining to his family for leaving him all alone as he really wants to talk to them about his life and misses them a lot. After calming himself a little, he says that he is feeling better than before as he has fewer nightmares, and asks his family to wish him luck for his upcoming big performance. He bids them farewell and tells them how much he loves them. As he leaves, Han, who has been hiding there all this time, approaches his family's stand while regrettably thinking about how Yunho keeps crying because of him. Just then, he looks at Yunho's family pictures and is surprised when they look oddly familiar to him, and a distant memory flashes through his mind. Seems like he has already met his in-laws. Later that night, Yunho is lying in his bed with tears leaking from his eyes when a goblin flame comes there and softly taps his cheek. Hanwol is in Kinghun's apartment when he finds out that Yunho is leaving the country for an international tour that will last 2 weeks. Han seems calm enough to hear it, but the goblin flames around his head keep tapping his head fiercely. Naru is surprised to see this and asks him if he did something to upset them, but Han stays silent in reply. Kinghun suddenly addresses him, saying that even though he is Naru's friend, he will not tolerate what he did to his friend, and he should apologize to Yunho. Han agrees to apologize as he remembers Yunho's shocked face when he accused him of hurting Naru. For the next 2 weeks, Yunho is on his international tour, leaving the audience speechless with their jaw-breaking performance and dazzling looks. Yunho is breathtakingly beautiful. I would die to attend his concert. After their last concert, he lies on his bed while thinking about how he always feels sad after the concert ends but feels the happiest when he is on the stage. After his mind relaxes a little, he remembers the events that happened at Kinghun's apartment, which makes him wonder if Hanwol really hates him that much. He comes out of his thoughts when Jongho comes to his room with drinks. As they sit there, sipping on their drinks, Jongho talks about how it feels like yesterday when he asked Yunho to join their band, even though 10 years had passed. He asks Yunho if he resents him because he could have been a famous idol if Jongho hadn't asked him to be their vocalist. Yunho chuckles after hearing that, as he says that he gave up his dream of becoming an idol when he was in middle school, and if he wasn't their vocalist, he would not be singing right now. He mentions how he wouldn't be doing something else as he doesn't have any other talent, which reminds them both of the time when he kept breaking things in the past. When they are done laughing at his clumsiness, Jongho softly asks him if something is bothering him, as he looks like something is weighing him down. Yunho replies that things are kind of difficult. His leader instantly asks if this is related to Hanwoo. Yunho is embarrassed about getting caught like this, as Jongho adds that he knows that Han would be hard for him to please. Yunho dejectedly says that Han doesn't like him much, but Jongho just smiles upon hearing that, saying that they are both very naive. Hanwoo is sitting on his favorite tree, and he can't understand why he can't stop thinking about Yunho. 2 weeks later, Yunho lands back in Korea with his team and instantly receives a message from Kinghun. His friend praised him for his amazing performance and then said that he yelled a lot at Hanwoo for being rude to him. He said that Han also felt bad for his behavior and asked for Yunho's address so he could apologize. But before giving the address, Kinghun wanted to get his permission. He texts Kinghun that he can give Hanwoo his address and goes back home, where Hanwoo is already waiting for him, wearing a white shirt. Do you remember who had advised him to wear the white shirt? Han has an amazing memory when it comes to a certain someone. Hanwoo quickly approaches Yunho upon seeing him. Yunho tries his best not to look at Hanwoo, secretly scolding himself for being happy to see Hanwoo. Han leans down to look into his eyes and apologizes for his previous rude behavior. Seeing Han so close, the only thing Yunho can think about is the unrealistic, handsome looks of Hanwoo. Before he can stop himself, Yunho says that if Han's face and voice weren't as tight, he wouldn't have forgiven him. He blushes when he realizes what he said, but Hanwoo seems amazed as he just smirks as he tells him to rest up. He quickly turns around and leaves. Yunho is surprised by the abrupt visit. Then Han suddenly turns and admits that he has been waiting for Yunho to come back. Yunho flushes to hear the confession and stands there speechless. Han rushes to get away from there, hiding his own flushed face and desperately trying to control his rapidly beating heart. Later, Yunho is sitting in his apartment, a little disappointed that Hanwoo only wants to say a few words to him, but he is still happy to see Hanwoo and can't stop gushing about his looks. He suddenly remembers that Hanwoo was dressed differently and turned crimson due to the fact that he might have done it because Yunho had mentioned it during their dinner. After resting for a while, Yunho visits Kinghun's place and gives Naru and Hanwoo the chocolates that he brought for them from the tour. Foxy happily hugs him, expressing how much he misses him. As he gives Hanwoo his chocolates, their hands brush a little, but they both quickly pull away. Yunho notices Han is looking at the big box he brought for Kinghun, and even though he thinks that they should be happy that he even brought something for them, he can't help but explain himself. He talks about how Kinghun is his old friend, so it is natural to give him something special, but he handpicked the best choices for each one of them. Hanwoo smirked to see him explaining himself, such a tease, and even though it annoyed Yunho, he couldn't stop the way his heart fluttered at the dazzling smile. Naru happily chews on the chocolates and offers them to Yunho, but he refuses, saying he has them at home. Yunho is surprised when Hanwoo suddenly comes near him and puts chocolate in his mouth. Since the chocolate got to his lips, Yunho takes the chocolate from Hanwoo. He starts eating, grumbling about how he said he had it at home, but he again blushes hard when Han just stares at him intimately and says he didn't hear what Yunho said. Han keeps staring at Yunho as he licks his fingers and tells Yunho he still has some chocolate on his lips. Feels like we are barging in on some private moment as Han seems to be eating Yunho with his gaze. Hanwoo is dazed by the sweet scent wafting from Yunho and softly holds his hand. He comes out of his trance when Yunho looks away, blushing, and shyly asks him why he is being like this. Hanwoo also blushed after realizing what he did. And as they both quickly moved away from each other, Naru couldn't help but gush about their cuteness. Kinghun is sitting in his apartment with Naru, wearing a cast on his arm. Foxy is worried about what they are going to tell Yunho about the injury, but Kinghun is calm as he says that since Yunho already knows about him seeing the spirits, it is not a big deal. Just then, Yunho barges into the apartment and worriedly approaches Kinghun, asking him if he is okay. Kinghun smiles softly as he says that since it has been a while, he has stopped seeing the spirits, so when one of them suddenly sprung in front of him, he stumbled back. At that moment, a store sign fell from its position. Kinghun got his arm injured while trying to save himself from the fragment flying toward him. But they didn't have to worry as it was just a minor fracture. Yunho is still worried as he searches Kinghun for more injuries, just as Hanwoo walks into the apartment. Yunho asks Kinghun to tell him if he needs anything, and Kinghun says that he doesn't have to worry as Naru is going to help him. Yunho is not happy with the statement, so he announces that he is going to help, but Naru quickly dissolves the situation by saying that they can both do it together. Foxy is our little peacemaker. Hanwoo silently watches Yunho and Naru running around and trying their best to help Kinghun, annoyed to smell the sweet scent coming from Yunho due to his feelings for Kinghun. After they finish eating dinner, Yunho helps Kinghun change his shirt and can't stop his heart from going crazy after seeing Kinghun's amazing body. He compliments Kinghun on how he is still working out and says that he will go to the store when Kinghun mentions that he ran out of water. Hanwol is silently watching this display of affection, annoyed with how close Yunho is to his friend. Yunho's scent has changed due to his feelings for Kinghun, which increases Hanwol's irritation. Watching them interact like that, Naru comments on how they are such good friends and giggles when he notices Hanwol huffing with jealousy. Kinghun suddenly mentions that he wants to take a shower, and Yunho is eager to help him, but before he can follow him, Hanwol drapes an arm around his shoulder. Yunho is flustered by the action and looks at Hanwol, who says that he should leave Kinghun to Naru and instead go to the mart for groceries with him. Yunho is still worried about his friend, but he agrees to go to the market, and they both bid goodbye to Foxy and Kinghun. Yunho is once again flushed as Hanwol suddenly grabs his waist, while the mythical tiger is happy when he notices that Yunho's sweet scent has come back. After buying groceries, they were both walking back home when Yunho couldn't stop talking about Kinghun being injured. Hanwol is extremely annoyed when Yunho says he wished he was injured instead of Kinghun. He finally snaps at Yunho, rudely asking him to stop talking about it. Yunho is surprised by the sudden change in his mood. Suddenly, they hear a loud sound of a car crash, and a plastic of groceries falls to the ground just behind Hanwol. People were surprised and comments on how the car crash sounded like thunder. Hanwol turns around and notices Yunho kneeling on the ground, trembling badly. He rushes to help Yunho and softly holds his cheek, helping him calm down his breathing. The tears fall like a stream from Yunho's eyes as he looks at Hanwol with his shallow breathing. After his episode, they are both sitting on a bench in a park when Yunho sadly asks Hanwol, saying that he must be surprised by his reaction. Hanwol quickly says he is fine and instead asks Yunho if he is feeling better now. Yunho smiles softly, replying that, thanks to Han, he is a lot calmer now. Han hesitantly asks Yunho what made him react like that earlier. Yunho tells him that when he was younger, he was in a horrible accident that caused him to have panic attacks. He says that it was hard for him to deal with all this, but he was able to hang on because he had Kinghun and his band members with him. He reveals how he reminds himself that there are still people who care about him, as he has given up his dream of becoming an idol in his life. He says that Kinghun and all the other guys, including Juho, who trained him to become an idol, held on to him. Even though he didn't become an idol like he dreamed of, he is still happy with how his life turned out. He says he is still not completely healed, and his reaction to the car crash earlier was his PTSD from the accident in which he lost his family. He looks at his slightly trembling hands while talking about how, whenever he hears a loud crash like that, his body acts like that on its own. Yunho reveals that after the accident, when he found out it was a drunk driver who crashed into their car, he would always throw up at the slight smell of alcohol and couldn't even get into a car for a while. And even now he can only ride the car if he pushed himself to sleep. Hanwol suddenly holds his hand, saying that he doesn't have to try and that he can avoid the things that hurt him. Hearing the words of comfort from Han, Yunho starts sobbing as he asks Hanwol if it is okay for him to do that. To his surprise, Han softly hugs him in the hope of comforting him. After his initial shock, Yunho leaned his head on Han's shoulder, who couldn't help but think about how he never held a human like this before. Yunho thanks him for his help, saying that he is always surrounded by good people. The superstar softly closes his eyes, feeling at peace for the first time after hearing someone say that he doesn't have to try. Yunho hesitantly tries to hold Hanwol's sleeve and almost backs out, but he finally gathers his courage at the last moment and tightly grabs onto Han's clothes. Hanwol tightens his arms around Yunho, thinking about how nice it is to be among those good people, and he is happy to be on that list if it makes Yunho happy.